"The fool is a cripple, Mum," Bella said, laughing. "Oh yes, that's exactly the type of man Naomi will marry," Mama Bella said, rolling her eyes with a smug expression. Naomi, sitting in the corner of the hut, picking beans, could hear their cruel words. She looked down, blinking back tears. Her heart ached, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Naomi, be quick with those beans, you dull head. I don't have all day," Mama Bella shouted from across the room. "Yes, Ma," Naomi replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Naomi wasn't Mama Bella's biological daughter. Her mother had died while giving birth to her, and Mama Bella, a close friend of her late mother, had taken her in. For a while, life had seemed okay. But then, Naomi's father married Mama Bella, and everything changed. That was when Mama Bella's true colours started to show. She was no longer the kind, caring woman Naomi once knew. The kindness turned into cruelty, the love into hatred. Mama Bella treated Naomi like an outsider, a burden. She made her life miserable, expecting her to serve her every whim, all the while mocking her behind her back. Naomi's heart longed for kindness, but instead she was caught in the bitter trap of a stepmother's malice. Mama Bella and Bella made Naomi's life a living nightmare. From dawn until dusk, she was burdened with endless chores. She had to wake up early every morning, long before the first light of day, to help with the farming. The fields were far, and the journey was exhausting. Every step Naomi took through the thick, sticky mud of the farm felt like a punishment. But there was no escape, no one to turn to. She was expected to carry heavy bundles of firewood, sometimes so large she could barely hold on, her hands shaking as the weight dug into her frail shoulders. On top of that, she had to carry enormous baskets of cassavassum times, 3 or 4 at a time back to the house. The weight seemed to double with each step, but she couldn't complain. Complaints were met with harsh words and cruel punishment. The sun hung high in the sky, an indifferent witness to Naomi's struggles. Its scorching heat beat down on her as she worked tirelessly, her skin growing darker with each passing day, while the sweat soaked through her clothes. It felt as though the sun itself was mocking her, shining bright and hot, as if it had no understanding of the pain she endured day after day. Naomi had grown accustomed to the constant ache in her body, the sore back, the calloused hands, the throbbing feet that felt like they would break beneath her. But still, she pressed on, for there was no other choice. She dreamed of escape, of a life where she could be free. But those dreams always felt too distant, too out of reach. As the years passed, Naomi blossomed into a beautiful young woman, her beauty becoming even more radiant with time. Her hair, once tangled and dull from the long hours spent working, now shone with a natural luster. Her bright eyes sparkled with untold dreams, yet her heart remained heavy with the burden of her life. Bella, too, had grown into a beautiful young woman. But unlike Naomi, she had always been treated like royalty. Her beauty was cherished, and Mama Bella doted on her, treating her like the princess of the house. Bella never had to work the way Naomi did. She had been spared the toil and sweat, allowed to enjoy the luxury of leisure. Bella's laughter was often heard echoing around the house, a stark contrast to Naomi's quiet and sombre existence. Their father, once a strong man in his prime, now sat in the corner, powerless and frail. Age had caught up with him, and the once robust man who had been the pillar of their family was now a mere shadow of himself. He watched from his corner, too weak to stand, his hands trembling as he held onto his walking stick. He had become a silent observer, unable to help Naomi, though he longed to. His old eyes, clouded with age, could see how cruelly Mama Bella and Bella treated Naomi, but he could do nothing to stop it. His voice had faded, his power gone, and all he could do now was silently pray that Naomi would one day find a way to break free from the oppressive life that held her captive. Despite everything, Naomi had not lost her grace. Her strength, born from years of hardship, had forged her into someone unbreakable. But each day, as she looked at her father in the corner, his helplessness reflected in her own heart, she wondered if she could ever escape the suffocating life she was forced to endure. Several men had come over the years, seeking Naomi's hand in marriage, drawn to her beauty and kind nature. But each time, they were turned away, often before Naomi even had the chance to speak with them. Bella, on the other hand, had an endless line of suitors. Men flocked to their house to win her heart, bringing gifts and promises of a better life. Mama Bella revelled in the attention, accepting every gift with a smile that concealed her true intentions. She pampered Bella, basking in the glow of her daughter's popularity, while Naomi was left in the shadows, watching from afar. Bella's laughter and sweet words to her suitors contrasted sharply with Naomi's silent, lonely existence. But Naomi's heart was not for sale, and her dignity was untainted by the gifts and attention that surrounded Bella. Still, she wondered why the men never stayed, why they never sought her out for her own worth, her own beauty. Mama Bella, who was more cunning than Naomi had ever realized, had a twisted way of ensuring Naomi stayed, trapped in the house. As the suitors came calling for Naomi, Mama Bella would welcome them with open arms, smiling and offering tea, pretending to be a warm and welcoming mother. But behind the scenes, she would poison their minds with cruel lies. "She's a dirty girl, very lazy, and a witch," Mama Bella would say with a cold, venomous smile. "She's my daughter by law, but I don't want to do you bad, my son, so I'm opening up to you. Don't make the mistake of marrying her." Mama Bella would speak with such venom, each word deliberately designed to crush any hope Naomi had of finding love or escaping the misery of her life. The men, confused and taken aback by Mama Bella's harsh words, would often leave the house without looking back, their minds tainted by the lies they'd been fed. Naomi, unaware of what had transpired, would later hear the news another suitor had been chased away, another chance lost. It was a cruel game, one that Mama Bella played with unrelenting malice. She knew that if Naomi were ever to marry, she would find a way to leave the house, to escape the control and manipulation. And so, Mama Bella ensured that no man would ever see Naomi for who she truly was. Each time a suitor came, Naomi's hope grew, only to be crushed again by the false accusations Mama Bella planted in the hearts of those who might have loved her. Bella, in her comfortable life, remained blissfully unaware of the wickedness that surrounded Naomi, taking for granted the attention and gifts that poured in, while Naomi's heart sank deeper into despair. For Naomi, each rejection felt like a nail in the coffin of her dreams. She longed for the love that Bella seemed to effortlessly receive, for the escape that seemed so close, yet so far. But the walls Mama Bella had built around her were impenetrable, and Naomi was left trapped in a life where her worth was diminished by lies and deceit. One day, a crippled man named Daniel came to their compound. He was not the kind of man Mama Bella had expected, and at first glance he looked nothing like the suitors that typically visited. But his courage was undeniable. He had heard of Bella's beauty and grace, and though he had no wealth to offer, he believed in the sincerity of his heart and his willingness to build a life full of love and devotion. "I've come from the neighbouring village to ask for Bella's hand in marriage," Daniel said with humility in his voice, his eyes filled with hope. Mama Bella raised an eyebrow, her expression hardening as she assessed him. The sight of him crippled and frail did not fit into the plans she had for Bella. Bella, who had always been her pride, deserved someone much wealthier, much more capable than this man. But something twisted inside Mama Bella. A wicked, dark thought formed in her mind, and her lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She had an idea that would trap Naomi in a situation she could never escape. "Oh, Bella's husband has already been chosen," Mama Bella said, her voice smooth and calculating. "But I have another daughter who is hard-working, knows how to cook and clean." Mama Bella's eyes glinted with malice. She was cruelly setting up Naomi to marry Daniel, the crippled man who had come seeking Bella's hand. This wasn't just an arrangement for marriage. It was a punishment, a way for Mama Bella to further degrade Naomi and keep her trapped in a life of servitude. Daniel seemed taken aback by the sudden shift, but he quickly composed himself, his crutches tapping against the ground as he tried to stay upright. Naomi could see the kindness in his eyes, and though he may have been disabled, there was something in his presence that told her he wasn't as hopeless as Mama Bella wanted him to be. Still, she felt trapped. Mama Bella's voice cut through Naomi's thoughts. "Naomi is very hard-working and will make a good wife. She can cook and clean for you, Daniel. You'll find that she's a good girl, very obedient," Mama Bella said, her words dripping with insincerity. Naomi refused to marry Daniel. She couldn't bear the thought of being forced into a life she didn't choose, not with a man she barely knew. But Mama Bella's response was cruel. She began treating Naomi's father terribly. No more food for him. The once warm meals that Naomi had carefully prepared for her father vanished, and he was left to suffer in silence. His health, already frail from age, deteriorated rapidly without the nourishment he so desperately needed. Seeing her father weak and hungry broke Naomi's heart. She knew that if she didn't give in to Mama Bella's demands, her father would pay the price. With no other choice, Naomi reluctantly agreed to marry Daniel, swallowing her pride and the sorrow in her heart. The wedding was simple, with few villagers attending. Whispers filled the air, some mocking Naomi, others pitying her. The gossip stung, but Naomi had grown numb to it all. This was her reality now, no more dreams of a future filled with love or happiness, only the harsh present. Naomi tried to stay angry at Daniel, to resent him for being the man she was forced to marry. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't. She saw in his eyes the same longing for a better life, the same vulnerability. He wasn't her enemy, he was just a man trapped by circumstances, much like her. As Naomi wheeled Daniel down the dusty village road, she realized that there was no room for hatred in her heart anymore. She had made peace with her life, accepting that this was her path. No grudges, just the quiet acceptance of what her world had become. Naomi pushed the wheelchair all the way down to the neighbouring village, clutching a small bag of clothes tightly in her hands. Her arms ached and the dust from the road clung to her skin. But she kept going. She had no choice but to move forward, one step at a time. If she grew too tired, Daniel would take over, rolling himself along the road as best as he could. You rolled yourself all this far distance for a wife? Naomi asked, glancing at Daniel, who nodded quietly. There was a certain sadness in his eyes, a reflection of the struggle he had endured. Naomi could see it, the determination to find someone who could love him, despite his condition. Daniel had never given up on the idea of finding a companion, and now Naomi was that companion, whether she was ready or not. He had travelled this far, through his own pain and limitations, just for the chance to build a life with someone. Naomi didn't know how she felt about this yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She was here now, and this was her reality. As they entered Daniel's village, Naomi's eyes widened at the warm reception Daniel received. People greeted him with such respect, even reverence. They waved, smiled, and spoke to him with kindness. Naomi was surprised by how the villagers treated him, almost as if he were a leader. She kept her thoughts to herself, not wanting to appear rude. But she couldn't help but wonder, was this how it would be for her now? A life filled with respect for Daniel, a life that had been denied her in her own village? They soon arrived at Daniel's modest hut, a simple structure with few belongings. Naomi looked around, noticing how small and humble everything seemed. Yet, as she stepped inside, something shifted within her. This was her new home now, and while it was far from grand, she was determined to make it her own. Naomi had made a promise to herself she would create a home here, one filled with warmth and love, even if the world outside didn't understand or approve. This was her new life, and she would find a way to make it work. Meanwhile, in the village Naomi had left behind, Bella had married Kenneth, a wealthy man who had come with a promise of riches. He had wooed her with material gifts, the finest clothes, jewelry, and promises of a life of luxury. Bella had been blinded by his wealth, thinking that money could replace everything else, the love, the respect, the companionship. But Kenneth wasn't the man she thought he was. Behind the gifts and the lavish lifestyle was a man who was miserable and angry. He expected perfection from Bella, but she was no cook, and her housekeeping skills were far from impeccable. She struggled in the kitchen, burning meals and leaving clothes unwashed. But Kenneth didn't understand. Instead of helping her, he became violent. Every mistake was met with anger, and every mistake led to a beating. Bella, once full of hope and dreams, was now trapped in a marriage she didn't want, filled with regret for ever choosing material wealth over the simple joys of love. Months passed, and Bella became a mere shadow of the woman she had once been. Her beauty, once the envy of many, faded beneath the constant marks of the abuse she suffered at the hands of Kenneth. Bruises marred her once flawless skin, and her eyes, once filled with hope and dreams, were now hollow and full of pain. The life of luxury she had once imagined turned into a daily nightmare, one that no amount of material wealth could erase. One day, Bella reached out to her mother, desperate for someone to help her. Mama Bella arrived, shocked beyond words at the sight of her daughter's condition. Before she could even say a word, Kenneth, with his usual arrogance, instructed his bodyguards to throw Mama Bella out of the house. His cold dismissal echoed through the halls, and Mama Bella, stunned, left the house, knowing there was nothing she could do for her daughter. Meanwhile, Naomi's life was about to take a dramatic turn. Daniel, her husband, asked her to follow him to a place he had been keeping secret. She was hesitant but agreed, unsure of what to expect. When they arrived at the village palace, Naomi was stunned by the respect and reverence the villagers showed to Daniel. They bowed before him, calling him Your Majesty. Naomi's eyes widened in shock. She had no idea what was happening. Then, something even more astonishing happened. Daniel, who had always been in a wheelchair, suddenly rose from it. His legs, which Naomi had assumed were crippled, were perfectly fine. Naomi gasped in disbelief. Daniel had been pretending all along. He was not the man she had thought he was. He was the young king of the village. Naomi stood there, her heart racing, as Daniel explained everything to her. He had chosen to live among the people in secret, to experience life as they did, without the burden of his title. Naomi's kindness and love had touched him in ways he never expected, and she had proven to be the one person who could see beyond the wealth and status he had concealed. Naomi's life was transformed overnight. The villagers welcomed her like a queen, and she was suddenly thrust into a world of royalty. Her dreams of a better life had come true, but in the most unexpected way. Naomi had found love and respect, not through wealth, but through her kindness and integrity. Meanwhile, Kenneth had grown tired of Bella's failures as a wife. He sent her back to her mother's house with a cold command. Learn how to be a good housewife. Bella, devastated and broken, had no choice but to return to the place she had tried to escape. At home, Bella and Mama Bella were shocked when Daniel and Naomi arrived at the door, surrounded by bodyguards and maids, dressed in full royal attire. Mama Bella looked utterly confused, as an agama lizard just fallen from a wall, her face pale and her mouth agape. Daniel calmly explained everything. He had been the king all along, and Naomi had unknowingly married him. Bella, overcome with emotion, began to weep. "I am supposed to be your wife," she cried, her voice filled with regret. The reality of her situation hit her hard. She had chosen wealth, but Naomi had chosen love. Naomi's father, who had been with them, was overjoyed for his daughter. He had seen her suffer for so long, and now he could see the happiness in her eyes. Naomi and Daniel had come to take him with them, to live with them in the royal palace. Mama Bella and Bella, kneeling before Naomi, begged for her forgiveness. Naomi, with a heart that had endured so much, forgave them, but she chose not to take them with her. The suffering had ended for Naomi. She had found true love in the most unexpected of places, and with Daniel by her side, she knew she would live a life of happiness and fulfillment. And so Naomi and Daniel lived happily ever after, their love a testament to the power of kindness and the unexpected twists that life can bring.